Hello students, welcome to another masterclass in English A-level literature with a focus on flipped learning. What are Shakespearean tragedies? It's not difficult to see how Shakespeare's tragedies of love such as Romeo and Juliet, Othello, Antony and Cleopatra were written from an imaginative standpoint ahead of their time. The heartbreaking conflict between what human beings need to be, deserve to be, and could be, and what the time and place they live in condemn them to become, could scarcely be clearer than it is in these plays. Shakespeare makes it equally plain that there's nothing to stop human beings putting an end to such tragedies by changing the world that produced them and changing themselves in the process. His creation of characters who can't come to terms with their world reveals the capacity of human beings to be radically different from the way their world expects them to be. So all of these particular characters end up defeated by the intolerable predicament in which they are trapped. The predicament itself is shown by them to be the product of a society whose authority can be resisted and contested. The way things had to be for them, as they prove at the cost of their lives, is not the way they should be and not the way they have to go on being. Once one understands that, it's much easier to see what other tragedies have in common with the tragedies of love and what's characteristically Shakespearean about them too. Shakespeare's tragic protagonists, the fictional universes they inhabit, and the tragic fates that await them are amazingly diverse. But every one of these tragic protagonists is doomed by having been cast in the wrong role, in the wrong place, in the wrong time. Every one of them becomes a stranger in a world where they had once felt at home, and a stranger to the person that they used to be or thought they were. And in the process, every one of them reveals the potential they possess to be another kind of person in another kind of world, which they will tragically never live to see. In Shakespeare's time, the term tragedy was most closely associated with a set of dramatic conventions established by the ancient Greeks and most famously theorized by Aristotle in his Poetics. According to Aristotle, a tragedy should center on a protagonist of noble birth, such as a prince or a queen. Though high-born, the protagonist of a tragedy has what Aristotle called hamartia, or tragic flaw. A tragic flaw is a negative character trait like excessive pride or jealousy, which causes the protagonist to follow a dangerous path in pursuit of something they aren't supposed to want. Along this path, the protagonist makes errors of judgment that bring chaos to their community, resulting in the protagonist's own isolation, suffering, and eventual downfall. Typically in tragedy, the protagonist recognizes their mistakes, but only once it's too late. The ancient Greeks believed tragedy had a social value because the audience shares closely in the hero's suffering, and once the drama is over, experiences an emotional release known as catharsis. If you think conceptually, Aristotle's theory of tragedy, well, a tragedy is the imitation of an action that is serious and also as having magnitude, complete in itself, in appropriate and pleasurable language, in a dramatic rather than narrative form, with incidents arousing pity and fear, wherewith to accomplish a catharsis of these emotions. Your flipped learning task will require you to research what a Shakespearean tragedy is and what are the differences between other tragedies. You will then need to consider the elements and structure of Shakespearean tragedies and how it is linked with context, and finally define what you understand by hamartia, catharsis, and hubris. You will also need to do a reflection on how far your text presents aspects of tragedy effectively.